Good afternoon, I'm Erin. I'm the Nature Center's manager for the Detroit Zoological Society, and I'm coming to you today from the Belle Isle Nature Center, and we're sitting here in the bird window, and you can see a lot of activity happening both on the ground and at the feeders behind me. And before we really get started learning about birds today, I want to point out these stickers on the window. They're just little dots, and they're laid out in a grid pattern, and those are here to help the birds see the window so they don't strike the window or collide with the window, and it helps us keep the birds safe and healthy. Okay, so before we get started with this first activity, we don't have any materials. We're just going to use our eyes and ears. The skills that we're working on today are mostly observation, and then we do have two vocabulary terms, phonology and mnemonic. Okay, so the first word, phonology, is the study of the timing of events in nature. And this means things like when you see the first robin in your backyard in the spring, or when the first crocus starts to bloom. And the timing of these events is related to day length and to temperature, and it impacts all kinds of plants and animals. So people have been studying and keeping records of phenological events for hundreds of years. For example, the cherry blossom bloom times in Japan have records dating back more than 700 years. So one phenological event that can be fun to observe is when you start hearing the songbirds in your backyard start singing. Some birds stay here year-round, and others migrate south to find food for the winter. As the days get longer and temperatures increase, birds start to return, and this coincides with our trees leafing out, with insects hatching out, all of which are also phenological events and are really important for the birds that both live here and that migrate back for the summer. So each week of the spring seems to bring new species of birds with it, and they start singing to attract mates, to set up nesting areas, and to warn off competitors. Today we're going to learn the songs of 5 of our common early spring birds that you can find in your backyard. So this brings us to our second vocabulary word today, which is mnemonic. And a mnemonic is just a memory device. In this case, it's just a word or phrase that we can put to help us learn a particular bird's song. Okay, are you ready? Let's go learn some backyard. Okay, here's our first bird, the northern cardinal. So the male is bright red and has an orange bill, and the female is much lighter brown, and she's got some kind of pinkish feathers. But notice that she also has a bright orange bill, so that can be a really helpful way to learn the cardinals. There are 2 mnemonics for this call. The first one is what cheer, what cheer, what cheer, and the second is purdy, purdy, purdy. So let's listen to the call and see if you hear one of those phrases. Our second bird, the American goldfinch, is a tiny, kind of olivey green bird with white and black bars on its wings. Later this spring, the male will become brilliant yellow when they get ready to nest. The mnemonic for American goldfinch is potato chip, which is pretty fun. Let's listen for that phrase. The third bird today is the American robin, easily one of our favorite signs of spring. Some robins do spend the winter here in Michigan, but many migrate south and only return as the ground thaws and makes their favorite food, earthworms, available again. Robins like to start singing very early in the morning, and their song might sound like cheery, cheer up, cheerio. Let's listen. Okay, we're going to do a really easy one next because this bird, which is just coming back from a winter spent on the Gulf Coast, says its own name. The killdeer is actually a sandpiper, which we normally find on beaches near water, but this bird likes lawns and other grassy areas, so you can probably find one in your yard or the athletic fields near your school. Like the robin, it spends a lot of its time on the ground, and it has a neat trick to keep predators away from its eggs. It pretends to have a broken wing and lures the hungry predator away from the nest. Then it flies off and it can safely return to the eggs. So the mnemonic for this is its own name, killdeer, 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 over and over. Let's listen. And then our final bird for today is one of our first springtime arrivals. In most years, the males come back before the ice and snow are even gone. Red-winged blackbirds sing conklery to warn off other birds and attract the females, and they can be so territorial during nesting season that they'll even dive at people as they walk by. Red-winged blackbirds love to nest in wetlands, and they're very loud. They're named for the male bird's beautiful red and yellow patches on their wing. The female birds look completely different and are streaked brown and white. Okay, let's listen to the call of the red-winged blackbird. Okay, now it's your turn. If you go outside today, listen for those 5 birds that we learned and try the mnemonics. You can also create your own word or phrase to help you learn those birds or some other bird calls that you might hear. Okay, for this next activity, you do need a few materials. You'll need markers, and I'm using poster board type markers, but you could also use washable Crayolas, something like that, or even Sharpie markers if you are going to do this on a window. You need a clear window or some paper. And then you need either some pictures. I just printed mine off the internet. You could cut them out of catalogs or magazines, or some small toys. A bunch of different Legos would work really well here, or other group of small toys like cars or stuffed animals. The skills we're going to work on here are observation, data collection and organization, and graphing. All right, so I'm using a couple of images of the birds that we just learned, and I'm going to look at the visitors to the bird feeder, and I'm going to count all of the cardinals that I see. And right now, I know that there are 4 cardinals, 2 males and 2 females out there. So I'm going to use, I have a grid on here, which is pretty easy for me to just use. So I'm going to count 4 squares, and you can draw these squares in or have your kids draw them in, and I'm going to color those in. So I've got 4 cardinals. My next one, I'm going to do red-winged blackbirds, and gosh, there's maybe a dozen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I'm going to draw in 12 spaces here, all the way up, and color that in. Okay, and I could keep going with this. A couple of other alternative ways to do this. If you didn't have the pictures cut out, you could just write the names in of the birds that you are seeing, or you could put red Lego, blue Lego, or green Matchbox car, whatever item you're going to be using to count and sort. And even really young children can start making some graphs and comparing these numbers. And this is just a note for the parents and guardians. If you're using like a whiteboard marker or a Crayola type washable marker, they do come right off the window with soap and water. If you do use a Sharpie marker, which lasts a little bit longer, you might need to use like an alcohol-based cleaning product or a vinegar-based cleaning product to clean off your window. And I would always test them first before you give your children free rein. All right, and we have one more version or additional activity that you can do here. And for this, the materials are, again, markers or crayons, any kind of writing utensil, pictures or toys. And the skills that we're going to be working on, again, are observation, counting and sorting, and graphing. Okay, and so for this last activity, again, we're going to use little birds because we have them. We're sticking with our bird theme, but you could, again, use pictures cut out from a magazine or printed off the internet. You could use toys. And the first thing is just to have kids sort them out. And so I'm going to sort them by color and line them up here. And you can see already it starts to make a 3-dimensional graph, which is a great skill to work on. And I'm just going to sort these some more, and we'll just do a few. Let's do some red cardinals here. And I'm going to line them up nice and neat. And then, especially for older kids that are starting to work on these graphing skills, I can take the marker, I can have the students draw in some axes and actually have them graph their toys or their birds. I could do this with the birds that I just found outside. 1, 2, 3, 4, got 2. And this really helps them match up numbers. If I do it carefully. All right, and so then I have graphed my birds. You don't have to use the markers. You don't have to add the axes. You could have older kids start putting in some numbers. We'll call these and labels, because these are all really good skills for kids to work on. And it's fun because you're manipulating objects. So again, you could do this with toys on the carpet and make a huge graph. You can do it on paper. You could do it with tiny things and do it on notebook paper. There's a lot of ways to sort and count these things. You could have them turn this into a Venn diagram, a pie chart. There's all kinds of skills that kids can get out of this while manipulating these small objects. All right, I just want to say thank you for joining us here at the Belle Isle Nature Center today, and encourage you and your parents or guardians to go outside and look or listen for birds in your own neighborhood. Remember, anyone can be a birder. You don't have to have any specialized equipment to look or listen for birds. And this time of year, as the birds are starting to come back from their winter migration, and even the resident birds here are starting to sing, it's a really fun time to be paying attention to what's out there and learn a few of those birds. So go practice those mnemonics and enjoy your time. So right now at the feeder, we're seeing a lot of male red-winged blackbirds, some house sparrows. There's a male cardinal. There's a little pink bird that's a house finch down on the ground. Let's see what else. Oh, there's 2 male cardinals. Oh, way down the hill, we've got more male cardinals, grackles, cowbirds. It's a good selection.